Okay, yeah. So we were just chatting, and I thought maybe I should start recording this. But so Karim is a color guru, just total genius with color. First thing, long before I'd ever spoken a word to you, I saw your pictures and thought, wow, the tones and colors are just so cool. And I think editing is something that can scare people a lot because it's easy to do wrong, and learning it, there's steps, right? And now you have to open yourself up to some creativity and all those things. But I think learning how to edit exposure is pretty easy. Like, there's a couple sliders. It's just, it's like, I mean, you move them in a couple different directions and see what happens. You can't really get it too wrong. Like, I mean, it's like if you like the way it looks, good to go. Color, though, like you kind of can get it objectively wrong and add bad color casts. And, I mean, you can get into a lot of trouble. So we're going to probably do a bunch of these, but today you're going to show us color cast, which I don't even know what a color cast is. So if you can explain it and show us how to fix it, and then our next installment, you can show me how to work with these crazy Fuji files, and hopefully we'll all be experts.
Sounds good. So a color cast is when like leaf colors or any color is cast on a bird because of the light reflecting on it. So I can start the share screen and show exactly what I'm talking about.
So what happens? Like the light's bouncing off the leaves or the water or something, and like screwing up
Yeah,
the colors.
yeah, it's reflecting on the feathers of the bird. So if you have like a bird with a yellow belly, it's gonna appear green yellow instead of like the true yellow it's supposed to look like.
Oh, cool.
Makes the bird looks a bit less like you would expect it to look like.
Now, would
So
you say is this like a warbler problem specifically, or is this like common
well,
amongst lots of birds?
I've noticed if you shoot like shorebirds on sand and like you have some very orange sand, it might make a color cast, but it
Okay,
usually doesn't look that bad compared to the green color cast. It's usually the one that looks the worst. Because
right.
I have some spotted sandpiper shots where the sand is getting reflected on the white belly, and it actually looks good. I didn't have to touch to modify it at all. So I like how it looked like. So
Sweet. Well, let's see. Show us.
all right, so I chose 4 photos. It's mostly warblers, and
This is Lightroom, right?
yeah, this is Lightroom.
Okay.
But I assume the same process can be done in pretty much any type of software because it's basically brush tools and a tint slider.
Okay.
So if you can apply a tint change to a brush, you can do the trick I'm about to show you, but it's not Lightroom specific.
Perfect. Yeah, this is more about theory than how to do it, right? I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah,
if you're
exactly.
if you're learning about how to remove color cast, you probably know how to edit. You just don't know where and why to do it, right? So
Yeah, so this is already edited. I'm going to show the original with the color cast.
okay.
So
Whoa.
look at the belly of the bird. So obviously there are other edits in this shot. There are many other stuff I put it in. So it's not only a color cast edit. It's all, I put some dehaze in the negative dehaze in the background.
So, so
I
take us back
painted.
to the original just for a second,
Yeah,
just to and you don't have to like live edit it, but can you just like so when you saw this, because again, the next video I'm going to get you to give me some quick crash edits. When you saw this, like what jumps out at you as things you want to fix?
definitely the belly because it shouldn't look like that. If someone's that doesn't know about birds sees this shot, they're gonna think it's maybe a bird with a green belly. They
Right.
not necessarily know what's the true color of this bird. And I
Okay.
want the bird to look how it's supposed to look like. So I can just I wanted to do the edit live with you.
Sure.
So I'm just gonna duplicate it and do it live.
And that's the original, and then what, you cropped it down a little bit?
Yeah, I cropped it like something like that. I think I had another aspect ratio. That seems about right. I'm just gonna do some minor exposure edits. This is the curve tool. I like playing with this tool a lot because You can change the midtones, the shadows, the highlights.
Now it's interesting. Go back to the curves for a second because you just did something that is different from what I've been doing. I was always taught by YouTube to put 3 points on the curve,
Yeah,
like shadow, mid, high. But
yeah, I'm,
I find that when I do that, like I just noticed when you adjusted your highs, like it dragged the whole curve up. It affected the mids a little bit.
yeah,
Whereas if you have a point already at the mids, it won't, right? It'll stop at that point.
that's
Well,
right. Yeah,
for me, I stopped using curves earlier this week because every time I did it, it was like so dramatic and contrasty. And seeing
mm,
you do that, it never occurred to me like just don't have all those points, right?
yeah. I usually like put a first point in the highlights and then in the midtones, and sometimes I will put a third one in the shadows. But I usually do 2 points, and it's just minor edits all the time. I don't want to do
So
something
what were
too
you trying to
dramatic.
do with the curves? Like lighten the image, or what was your
Yeah, in specific areas, and I don't have like a rule for it. I just look in the image and see if it looks good. Honestly, I don't have like a rule of thumb. I just usually start in this region here. I bring it up a little bit, and I start in the midtones, and I just just by eye, just by looking at it, if it looks fine, that's all you need to do really.
and why do you use those instead of exposure sliders?
Again, I'm not quite sure. I've always felt like the exposure sliders didn't look as good as when I did like all these little steps, like the I do the point curve. I sometimes do the dehaze a little bit, just like so, like -7 or 6. And maybe I will, if there's too much shadow, it's just only like -15 or 10. I don't do like um big changes.
Right.
But it looks better when I do multiple little changes than one big exposure slider change. If that makes any sense.
It does. Now the dehaze when you're doing that.
Yeah,
So I use on one photo raw and I have a haze slider.
yeah.
So I believe if memory serves, when I increase my haze, I think it's increasing how much haze is in the folder.
That would
So
be the upper limit.
when
Yes.
you decrease your dehaze, you're actually adding haze to the photo, right?
Yep.
Okay. So it's the same feature. It's so like you said, everybody's gonna have to figure out how their own editor works. If you're not using Lightroom or what you're using, what Lightroom cloud, like just the cloud, the new one, CC or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But the tools work the same. Okay. So you're lightening things, you're dehazing them a little, adding a little glow to the image kind of thing, right?
Yeah. The haziness is. It's like you put a little bit of fog on the image, basically.
Right.
It's.
Okay.
I think a lot of software has a similar function. I think.
So it already looks
And
like a
for
lot
the
different, but now that you've brightened it, you can see the green on the belly like a lot more.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Now, is
So
that a reflection or were you shooting through a leaf?
So I'm not quite sure for this one. Sometimes it's foreground, so it's not actually a color cast. So I think this one is might be foreground, but I'm not 100% sure. But either way, you can fix it the same with the same tool. So
Cool.
zoom in here, and I see some green here, but it's not the same intensity. So I'm not gonna put a brush over there. I'm gonna do another brush for this part because I
Okay.
don't want to. So we're just gonna start by brushing in the region. And so here is the thin slider. And to remove the green, you gotta put it to the magenta side a little bit. And what I do as well on the same brush, I remove some saturation.
Oh, okay.
So it's already looking a little better. So
Right. Yeah, I see what you mean.
it's still a bit green, but I'm gonna do another mask just for this the area under the beak. I feel has a little bit of green and a little bit here on the sides.
Well, you really hate green, eh?
I hate it. I love green, but not on my bird. I love it
Yeah.
in the and I usually desaturate the greens a little bit in almost all my shots. So I think I'm gonna do it here too. And I like to compensate with yellows. So when I drop the green, I bring in some yellows in.
Oh, interesting.
And I sometimes, I play with hue a little bit. With
Yeah.
the greens, I love to either make them more yellow, but not too much, so it looks like I have like fall leaves.
Which, I
Yeah.
mean, the last edit I did, that's what I turned my greens into straight like oranges.
Honestly, it looks nice sometimes, but it's also like a bit like deceiving, if I can say. But I mean, I've done it a few times too because it just looks so nice, and
Yeah.
if it looks good, it looks good. But I try to have, if it's a green scene, I'll try to have it green.
Well, and I think the argument, I mean, I mean, for me, yeah, I don't care what color the glow is, if it's green, orange, whatever. If I liked it better, but what I didn't realize when I did it is that everyone I showed it to was saying, well, it does kind of look unnatural. Like you can kind of tell that wasn't the color, right? Like it's,
Yeah,
maybe your
usually you
average
can
viewer
tell
wouldn't
usually.
tell, but if you look, so
Yeah, usually you can tell when it's done. At first, I wouldn't like see it, but now I can definitely see it. Now that I've used this tool.
right.
So that's pretty much what the whole edit for this. I wouldn't go like you can really go hard on the magenta slider, but then it starts looking magenta, So
Kind of pinkish,
it's
yeah.
yeah, it's good to have it like balanced so it doesn't look too magenta and not too green.
Right.
So this is before and this is after. So it looks
Yeah,
a
that's
little
a big improvement.
and for those wondering, this is an oven bird. It's actually a warbler, another poorly named warbler, like a lot of other warblers out there. And I'm gonna move to the next one.
That's a nice shot.
Thanks. It was pretty hardcore on the color cast, this one.
Wow.
Yeah, that looks.
And that's like witchcraft. This is like one of those, when you see Topaz ads and it's like,
Yeah,
oh, I saw one just before we did this. It was like a sponsored post on Facebook and it was like a super blurry Kestrel. And then it's like motion blur and it's tack sharp. And I remember when I first bought it and I was like, whoa, that's how it's gonna work.
yeah,
But like you're literally showing me like this sickly green little warbler. It looks like puke. And then you show the edit. Like that's crazy that like it's just so interesting that like okay, so I want to see what you do here, but like your process like makes and your photos still look really natural. That's the difference. Like a lot of people, myself included, Lightroom's new auto subject mask and stuff like that. It's like very tempting to like let's darken the whole thing and then mask the bird and
yeah.
the
It
exposure.
is.
And I'm like guilty. Like my channel is not about me being an expert. It's about me like trying to leverage other experts because I don't know what I'm doing. And it's amazing. Like you find ways to make the bird pop without doing something like weird to it. Like
Yeah,
you make it like that doesn't look natural, even though that's what you captured, which is
yeah. It
kind of
was very
backwards how most
intense.
people think about it, right?
And so this one is clearly not a foreground issue like the other one. It's clearly a color cast. It's just green color getting reflected off the leaves and onto the bird's belly. So it's a pretty good example of it. And you can see in the background, it's pretty harsh sunlight.
Yeah.
You can see it's like all blown up behind. And this bird was in the shade. So this is why the image, like this image doesn't look that good to me right out the box at all.
No,
So,
I'll
and
agree with you because I know what it's gonna look like.
And I think in this one I did a lot more brush work because it didn't look right with just doing a basic brush tool with the magenta. So you can see I have a couple of brushes here, and I'm going to show you what all of these are about. So let's duplicate this. All right. All right. So same thing as the other one. I'm going to do some minor little increments. I usually just do it by eye, like contrast, I may do it in one side or the other. I just look with my eyes if it looks good or not. Shadows, sometimes I do the same thing. Looks all right. I love the vibrance tool. I'm not sure what the equivalents are on other softwares though.
Yeah, I have the same.
I find it
Most
a
of the
bit,
tools are the same and on one. Like they're in different locations, but for the most part, the only thing I think Lightroom has that I haven't seen, because I've tried most editors, is probably clarity.
yeah.
Like a lot of programs have some sort of micro contrast or something, but they all kind of like I feel like texture and clarity are like very Adobe specific.
Interesting.
So like I've got different tools that will do both of those jobs, but again, they handle it different. But everything else, like color and exposures, I think that's all pretty standard. Curves, all that stuff. So
Hmm. And I feel like this the vibrance slider is a lot less aggressive than the saturation one.
what's the difference? Do you know?
I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I really find it a lot less aggressive. You
Right.
know, you do it with the saturation, it just looks like awful.
That looks like it'd be really popular on Facebook. Just,
Maybe,
just crank it up. That's like an H. Remember when HDR photos were like all the rage 5 years ago? Like,
yeah. Oh
and
man,
what
so
while
great
you're
at.
editing, why do you use CC and not Classic for Lightroom?
Oh man, I honestly have no clue. I just picked it up. I didn't know there was two softwares at the time. I just,
That's the
I
only
just
reason I left Lightroom. Like I tried both, and I hated the interface on Classic.
yeah.
I liked CC, but I didn't like being kind of forced to try to use a cloud system.
Hmm.
But I mean, obviously Lightroom's very, very powerful. And if I were to ever go back to Adobe, it would definitely be CC. Like Classic's so ugly, I wouldn't use Classic again. But this looks like Luminar, but it works.
Yeah.
If Luminar, if Luminar didn't crank your saturation, that's what this looks like.
And one thing I like to do with the before putting a brush, if it's a really heavy color cast, I can adjust the green hue here. So it basically, the greens are going to look yellowish instead of green.
Okay, yeah,
But it also does it on the leaves. So gotta be careful not to do it too much. And I like to have the yellows on a bit of the orange side in these cases, because the is gonna look more accurate to the bird's color here. If you can see, it looks more yellow that way.
right, yeah,
If I just toggle it off, only those two sliders made a big difference to me.
they did, yeah,
And it doesn't look like too orange too. Like this bird looks like that. Maybe not like, the dark sections are not dark enough here.
yeah.
And the eye patch could look better, but we're getting there. So let's do the brush.
Just get rid of all that green. You're gonna have fun with these Fuji files. Just green, green, green.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think there's that much green. I don't shoot a lot of green.
So in this one, I'm not gonna desaturate it too much because I want to keep the yellows, but I'm gonna desaturate it a little bit. And then magenta. And maybe I'm gonna add some temp because it's just yellow color getting in there.
Right.
So let's see without the brush.
Ugh.
So yeah, that makes it.
That makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I might even resaturate it a bit. That was good. One thing that still bothers me here is the eye patch. The color is a bit off. Some stuff I like to do is just put a little brush on it. And I don't know if you have this tool here. It's a global hue thing.
Right. But you're just
Yeah,
brushing it in, right?
yeah. So I have a brush on the eye patch,
Yeah.
and I slightly slide it to the orange side, like -3, maybe 4, not as a little much. So now I just removed it. Now it's on. So to me, this looks like a Cape May warbird. I could even, darken up the areas like I said here. And I usually look at pictures of the birds on eBird because it's usually pictures that are not too edited. And so I have a reference point on how the birds actually look like.
Oh, interesting. So you really care about like editing to the accuracy of the bird, eh?
Well, I like to do it, but I feel like I get it wrong still sometimes because I do a lot of color grading and stuff, and I kind of lose my eye for it sometimes. But I try to keep the integrity of the colors of the birds for sure.
You're not like me with my loon pictures when I give them laser eyes. Just
Yeah, that's a
like
good one.
the brightest red eye.
Yeah,
Black and white loon picture, just totally monochrome, but with a red eye. That's nice. I'll do a tutorial on that.
that's such a classic Facebook photo, though.
It
Just
is.
black and
Yeah.
white, but the eye is red.
Who wants the likes? This guy.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe if you want more of these videos.
All right, so I just darkened up all the blacks.
Yeah,
And, it just looks like a Cape May warbird to me. And this is before, and this is after.
that does make a big difference.
And I did do some other edits on the other one. Like I did blur the background more. I dehazed.
How do you blur the background?
Oh, good question. You take a big brush. You don't have to be like that precise about it, honestly. Well, you might want to be precise if you're gonna print the work, but for Instagram, it won't matter.
Yeah, I mean a lot of. I mean, it's interesting. I used to use Photoshop and like use like a Gaussian blur tool, and I mean, there's definitely lots of ways to do it, right? But what do you do? Just like remove texture or something, or
Yep, texture and clarity usually.
bring them down? But it's interesting. We also talked about how important editing is, even if you don't want to do all of the. So let's say somebody doesn't want to blur their background, whether they don't feel like it's representative. I mean, if you want to do it with a lens, then great. But I guess the question I would have is if you're taking a sharp photo and the only difference between like the really expensive lens and the cheaper lens, the background's blurred in both photos, right? It's not like you're going from tack sharp 200 feet depth of field. Like either way, you're getting a blurry background. But if you look at it and say, well, it'd be nicer if it was 15% blurrier, if you can do it in 30 seconds with a mouse, I mean, don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. I understand the appeal of nice lenses. I mean, if you're watching this and you've got a big expensive prime, hats off to you. I mean, I bet it's an awesome lens. But if you don't have it, if you've got a Sigma 6.3 or the new Fuji f8 lens and you want to blur it, I mean, you're going to get subject separation no matter what. But like, how far was the stuff behind him here, do you think?
so this branch was about, I'd say like it was in the same tree, so maybe like 6 or 7 feet.
Wow. So
And
I mean,
what's
yeah, that's pretty nice before you even touch it, considering. But like you said, if you can touch it a bit more and
yeah,
and also as you said, if it was something you were going to print, then maybe you'd spend the extra 15 minutes like being very precise with where you brush. That's where Adobe is also cool with the auto subject masking, which I mean, again, as an on1 user, that's coming out in the fall for on1. So I think these features, like what I want to highlight here, obviously, is color, but I think it does show like a couple little edits. We're not talking about making your photo look ridiculous. We're talking about making it look more real or pop a little without going over the top. So this one's nuts. Like when you show the edit and the original is quite unattractive. Uh,
yeah,
Obviously,
totally.
it's a nice pose and you captured it sharp, but like the color, like it's pretty garish, and it's
Oh
amazing.
yeah,
Like you just completely changed it. But like a lot of people, including me, wouldn't know what to do and where to do that. Right? Like it's like I'd make it black and white because the color scared me so much. So
yeah, yeah. Well, it's really amazing that you can fix such a big issue in photos now with software.
yeah. Well, let's
Honestly,
let's see a couple more and hammer this point home for people.
yes. So I'm not gonna go through the whole edits for the two last one.
Where
I
where
just
did you get the googly eyes for this bird? Because you pasted those on, right?
Yeah. Usually, like, I just I have a dart gun and I shoot it on the birds and they fall asleep, and I
Right.
just glue the eyes on the birds.
This is the
And
dumbest looking bird I've ever seen.
yeah, it is. But at least it's not green like this.
Are those? Oh, okay. Yeah.
And yeah, this shot is not very it's not a very good shot to begin with, honestly, because this is out of focus and it's way too sharpened. But I just wanted
It's
to add
it's
it.
a good example though of like a white bird that like looks very green.
Yeah,
Once you clean it up, it looks a lot nicer, the photo.
for sure, for sure. And I'm gonna show you a final one. And I did the same idea with the Cape May Warbler, where I did the whole color cast edit, which was not that bad here.
Wow.
Well, it doesn't look green on the white here, but look at the orange on the throat, and look at those yellows. This, like, those colors doesn't look good to me at all.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's the trouble with greens, especially like in a pursuit where we like photograph a lot of trees, right? Like green can be so overpowering. Even and like I guess again, and the next time we do this, I have some questions to you about blue skies, which I know you're really good at as well. Um, and yeah, like that's intense. That's a lot of green, and I mean, this does not look as bad. Like this actually, like I think looks kind of nice as it is.
yeah, it's not that bad. It's not as
It's not
bad
like the
as the
Kate
other
May
ones.
shot, right? Like it's
Yeah,
not like horrific, but your
yeah.
edit makes it look a lot better. So show us quickly, run us through this one, just high level.
All right, I'm gonna do it full speed.
Perfect. Yeah, show us how long it takes you to do an edit. I won't bother you. If this was like basketball, I'd be blowing the whistle and I'd keep stopping the clock. And you haven't even gotten into any brushwork. You're just like doing some global color shifts.
Yep. Again, the hue on the orange side, and there you go.
And how did you get the background greens to be? I missed what you did there. How did you get them to be like less?
That was the HSL slider. So I turned the greens like -15 here to
Yeah.
the yellow side. Yeah.
Wow.
And see how that orange color looks disgusting here?
Yeah.
Now it's orange.
Because you brush the tint, right? You changed it to magenta to get rid of the green.
Actually, for this one, it was the same process as the eye patch of the Cape May Warbler. I used
Oh, okay.
this slider here, and I slided it to the orange side, like -9.
Gotcha.
You can like, this is the slider. Yeah. So you have to be really careful with this, like, minor increments.
No,
And
go hard.
again, I had to look like on Google Photos how it looks like to know what color like, how far I should push the slider.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool. I mean, you're making the pictures look natural. And maybe what I'll do is I'll get the photos and I'll put them up here at the end as we're talking here. So yeah, if you want to send me like the high res version of these, and I'll just put them up because I don't know what the quality of the zoom for resolution has been. But I
All
want to
right.
see how the edits go, and then you can kind of see like the nice the finished shots here. But yeah, so anybody has any questions, I'll link your stuff below. What's your main social medias these days? Where are you active if people want to come follow you and check you out?
Instagram at Southshire Raptors, Southshire_Raptors, and Flickr,
Oh
just my
yeah,
name.
get the Flickr.
Yeah, so
I'll
you
link
can
to
follow
both.
me there.
That's
I'm pretty
right.
friendly if you want to chat, and yeah.
Quick story before we end this. So I was on Reddit looking at bird pictures once, and I saw this guy post, and I'm like, wow, why does he get so many likes on Reddit? It's like crazy. And like it just had a link to an Instagram, and then I clicked it and saw that you're a fellow Canadian, you're up in Montreal. So what, we probably live 5 hours apart. And it's funny too, because South Shore Raptors, I'm like, oh, okay, another Raptor account. And then all of a
Yeah,
sudden I start seeing all these songbirds and shorebirds. And but
yeah. I'm so not focused on raptors anymore. Like
yeah,
it's been a while. Yeah, it's what brought me to photography and stuff. But I barely look at raptors anymore.
I was birding with Shay, our guest from the last episode. For anyone who's watching all these, and we were out birding and shooting this morning, and we both kind of talked. Like, I mean, I can't walk for hours for owls, but Shay was talking how he's done it like a couple times. He's like, oh, it's just too much, like way too much work. And we were both like, oh yeah, like Karim does in the winter, just like goes out for all day, just lost in the woods, just
Yeah,
just like so extreme, so just
accurate.
extreme birding hardcore. But Kareem's an awesome guy. Long before I knew him, I messaged him and was like talking tips. And then when I was interested in the Sony, we've kind of we've been working together to foster our community of local shooters. And it's again, for anyone still watching this, I think there's a lot of talk right now about where people want to share their work and how community is going to get built. And I encourage you, if you want to have community, ask yourself, what does community and engagement mean to you? Does it just mean likes? Because if it's just likes, you just want someone to like your picture, then either post reels or go to wherever. But if you want real community, then find who's shooting and reach out and make some friends. Start a group chat or start a little photo club and do some contests. I mean, we've I don't even know how many months it's been we've been doing this, 5-6 months. We've had our little club, and it's amazing. I think everybody in our group has agreed that we've learned, and the funny thing is, like, everyone in the group was really good to begin with. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's taken a
We're
lot of
all
people.
much better now. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's checked their ego at the door and just learned from each other, and like, and it's it's good to learn and push your limits, and get criticism and feedback from people you respect. So that's what I want to do with these videos. I'm going to be talking to people about different techniques and birding, which, I mean, you're in school for that stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
naturalist,
I want to work in
biology.
biology. Yeah.
So I'm sure
Biology.
I'll have you back on talking about actual species and how to find them, because obviously that's
Yeah.
part of the reason you get these beautiful pictures is because you know how to find the birds and get right up close to them and take them. But the color cast, you're the first person who's ever said those words to me. And when I looked at your edits, I'm like, wow. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna try another look and look at some of my photos and see what you would do with them. But that's gonna be the next episode. So for now, I will link your stuff below, and yeah, I'm sure if you guys are trying this, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but send your results to Kareem and show him if you can
Absolutely.
if you can turn like a bird into like a blue-throated tree warbler or whatever you just did with that thing. So all right.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me, man.